Well, guys, I recently got asked to make a video to show how to fly a helicopter, basically the MSR. So for those who are coming from a coaxial helicopter to one of these, there's some big differences in the way that it'll fly. One thing I can tell you is, at the beginning, what you need to do is get your head around a couple of things. Right? And when I teach somebody face to face, what I tell them to do is always look at the mast of the helicopter. Don't look at the blades, don't look at the skids, don't look at that, don't look at anything. Look at the mast. The mast will move before the rest of the helicopter does. So if you tilt it to the side, you'll see the helicopter will tilt over and then it'll follow. And then if you tilt it the other way, it's still going in that direction, right? And then it starts coming back. And then you correct again, it's still going the other direction. And then it comes back across. So the mast leads the actual helicopters. So always look at the mast. That's the first thing. You've got to get your head around that. So when you look at it side on, you can tilt it like that, and then it'll start moving. Right? And then when you correct it, you'll see that, let's say you're coming in like that, you correct it, it'll still come in like that, and then eventually back off. Next thing that you've got to remember, with one of these helicopters, you can bank them right over. Right? Whereas a coaxial helicopter will bank over to a certain point, and if you let go of the controls, it'll right itself and come good. Well, most good coaxial helicopters will do that. So what you've got to think to yourself is, okay, what am I doing when I do that? Well, you're banking and you're preparing yourself for a turn. So what you need to always do is keep this tail behind the travel. So if your helicopter is going around like that, banking and making a turn, you need to push that tail around. If you don't push that tail around, what will happen is the helicopter will just slide down. So if it's like this, you bank, it'll slide and it'll hit the dirt before you know it. But if you were to bank it, turn the tail, as you can see, it's in a nosedive at the moment. So you need to go up elevator to correct that. So as you bank, you need to go up elevator and bring the tail around at the same time. So you level, bank, bring the tail up elevator at the same time. And that's a real basic way to fly the helicopter. Now the other thing is, making right hand turns with a helicopter like this are a lot easier than making left hand turns. Why is that? Because it's a motor driven tail and you're actually pushing more thrust, so you have more control when you bring the nose around in this direction. Whereas when you're going this way, you have to back the thrust off on the motor. So you'll get a tendency that it'll kick every now and then. It doesn't do it so much on the Blade MSR, but some other helicopters like this will do it more so than this one. This is a pretty good helicopter, and it holds quite well doing an anti-clockwise turn. So when you bank around this way, it's still okay. Right? But the easiest is when you come around in a clockwise direction. My suggestion is, first, treat it like a coaxial. Keep it level, just bring the tail around with a slight downhill run. So basically down elevator just a touch and bring it around slowly, slowly. Make your turn like that. Just keep it going around until you come back to the beginning again. Alright, then try to increase the speed a bit. And what you'll find is that as you keep going around in that circle, you can no longer, there's a point where you can no longer keep the helicopter flat to make that turn, and that's when you start having to bank it. So banking it will pick up the speed as you go around. The way that I've explained to one person was, if you remember those aeroplanes you used to get that had a propeller at the back, the wings like that, and a piece of string, and used to hang it from the ceiling. Well, that used to bank at a certain angle, and the tail always used to follow around. Well, we don't have the luxury of the tail following around in a helicopter. We have to push that tail to follow around. A helicopter will be quite happy to keep that tail straight, and you try to do everything else, and it will just fall. Right? So you've just got to keep bringing that tail around as you go around in the direction of travel. So make sure it's trailing the direction that you want to go at all times, unless you're doing stunts, of course. So that's pretty much a basic way of how to fly a helicopter.